telecenters in India are very different from telecenters in Africa. In Africa, we tend to focus much on infrastructure, having many computers, very good house, a very nice house. But you will see in India, we only have one computer, one telecenter with one computer, and that telecenter is providing up to 40 services and still a huge amount of money. So that's the first difference. The second difference is that in Africa, telecenters are still providing traditional services, training and internet, mainly training and internet services. But telecenters in India, they are providing traditional as well as government, business services, government to citizen services, business to citizen services, and also some of e-learning services. Thirdly, is that there is a partnership between private and government in India, while in Africa there is a gap. So the government is not working with the initiatives. Can you add something?
I think on the other hand, the new model in India, the PPP model is private-public partnership model. This model is the private sector partnership with the government and entrepreneurs to be involved in that partnership. As a good example, in the rural level, some entrepreneurs to join the companies. These companies form or the system at national or regional level. Then the government to provide some loans at the bank or other areas, and then entrepreneurs to be formed that telecenter or in the rural level, and that's one sector provides many services in that local community. On the other hand, 100,000 telecenters formed in India. 100,000.
100.
It's a very large number of telecenters. They have a plan to 2012 upgrading the number of these telecenters to 250,000, like that. Then this is a very maximized plan and is ambitious of the government. There has to be, especially the government commitment with collaborating with the private sector is huge commitment and a huge trust within the private and the government side. As a good example, like one telecenter provided the passport service. This passport service simply to collect the document with the client and send to the internet to the government office. The government see that document and approve that. The passport simply take one citizen in that telecenter community. Then this kind of partnership, this kind of commitment is huge in India to build the trust. I don't know, all of us to be questioned how to implement this kind of trust to establish and to maximize in Africa. Because many issues to be raised, securities and other issues to be raised. But in India is to be established this kind of trust and confidence. On the other hand, I think so is the colleagues to get.
What I would say is not entirely different from what my colleagues have said. But what I noticed is the government's keen involvement in telecenter development in India. And what I noted is the ministries have professionals in that sector, as opposed to Africa, where you find a minister is not a professional in that particular field. He is merely put there by probably the president or his friends. So he does not have that inspiration to keep that work going. A lot has been said about the private-public partnership. And also the telecenters are completely shifted from donor dependency. We have entrepreneurs, people who have the interest in the village, partnering with the government and do not go very far. So those are the key issues. I think my points are more aligned to what Pete asked.
Thank you. The most prominent one is what my colleagues have mentioned is the government commitment. This is a very big difference from the African Telecenters initiatives. The governments here are not really as committed as the Indian government. It is the Indian government actually which organizes institutions, even like banks, insurance companies, to work with the telecenters. The government itself organizes this. So it is not easy for a telecenter movement to go, say, to a company like an insurance company and negotiate to tell them to facilitate, to provide their services through telecenters. But it's the Indian government movement. It's something like a liberation. Working with institutions in India to make sure that the services, the e-services, they are worked through telecenters. It's the government organizing this. So in Africa, if we want to move to that, we have to go to take that into action. But the most important other item was that we Africans, or the African telecenters, can learn how to become sustainable by integrating the social concepts now we are doing with something like an enterprise social concept. The Indian telecenters are sustainable just because they implement this. Of course, there is a difference in social and economic status in India and Africa. You find these Indian villages, there are people who need services that will generate income, like maybe paying tax and what have you. But you might find in our villages, it's difficult, even you establish such a kind of a business, to get enough for users who will generate that. But what I could suggest is that we have to carry out a sort of maybe a survey or a feasibility study to see what African communities can contribute to that, so that we advise our governments or to carry out maybe to devise such kind of things or principles that some institutions like the income tax, like the TRA and what these services, the communities should not go to the district offices. Should be done through the telecenters. So the telecenters now get some commission from that. This is what we sustain. We make our telecenters sustainable. But make some of interesting items that India also has a very, very formidable infrastructure. As you know, technologically India is very, it's very advanced in this. So it is actually the electronic infrastructure to the villages is easier or more, available more than what we have here. So this also is a challenge to us, but also technology. India is very well advanced in technology, and so it has this kind of software, as I say. For example, what we would like, I was talking to some of the people. We would like to make the streaming technology. It is very, very expensive using streaming technology in Africa. If you use the Western kind of materials, they are very expensive. But in India, they produce them themselves at a very, very cheap, rate. So it is easier for them to implement at easier cost, and this also was very important. But also the easier way of accessing the skills or the human resource in India, because there are so many, skilled land, even in the villages. So it is easier for them also to do something like maintenance of, the equipment in the around. But in the case of Africa, you find these IT personnel are in towns.